order. We will start with a roll call. Steve Whitman, Bonnie Sears, Bridget Powers, myself, Rebecca Hanson, Bill Bolton, Chris Buckley, and Brian Murphy. Mary Ann is not here this evening. I received an email from her. Next, we'll move on to the minutes from our last meeting. Any comments, edits, highlights, favorite parts of the minutes from last meeting?
Oh, there were a couple.
Yeah.
I have a question. I noticed, first I thought it was an error, but I think it's consistent. When there's been a motion that's been seconded, there's a semicolon after seconded and then the name of the person.
Oh, yeah, it's in the wrong place.
Okay, well, it's there on the first page, and then it's again on the last page, after seconded. I just wasn't sure.
Yeah, just misplaced.
Okay.
I have a edit on the very top of the last page. It references the site plan subdivision regulations.
Yep.
That should be an site plan and subdivision is one word.
And I have a point of clarity on the bottom of the second page, on that bottom paragraph. He claimed drinking a lot of seltzer. Actually, I was under duress when I said that because that was the last thing I said, but it was excessive coffee. So I just want that on the record.
That's right after nature was calling.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Rebecca, I couldn't find your,
The top of the last page, the first sentence.
oh, yeah, got it.
When you got the coffee, not seltzer, in the.
Yeah, the important stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's like rewriting the minutes because you did say seltzer.
I know, but like I said, I was under duress.
Would you like a motion?
That's spoken, not content.
Okay.
All right, anything else in the minutes? Or a motion, perhaps?
I'd make a motion to accept these as amended.
Approve them as amended.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
I can't vote on
You were
it.
not there, right, thank you. Okay. Next up is a continuation from May 16th, 2019. Request by Ambrose Brothers, Inc. through their agent Horizons Engineering for a site plan review of a proposal to excavate sand and gravel on PID number 242-001. I guess I should say that we did receive a dense memo from the Lakes Region Planning Commission. I just want to make sure everyone got a chance to look at that. Any discussion on the board, or from the board on this? There's a couple issues in here I think that are worth talking about, but I also would like to make sure we open it up again to the public hearing in case there's any abutters or abutting towns that are here this evening. We didn't hear anything else, Brian, from any other towns?
We have received nothing but from LRPC.
Okay. I did hear from the chair of the Holderness Planning Board in passing that they would not be in attendance this evening. So.
I'm here from Bridgewater.
Okay, thank you. We will open it up for a public hearing. You're welcome to speak at that point. Does everyone need a moment to review these?
I reviewed them.
Any points, questions, comments on LRPCs?
I would just comment that I appreciated what Susan put together, and that she cited that there were at least 4 out of the 6 conditions, then she listed 5, with the 5th being the other considerations.
Yep.
I didn't see anything that would, I didn't see anything that would be an issue for the applicant, aside from some clarifications of conditional approval. And the conditional approval would be related to number 3 because of proximity to aquifers.
Yep.
There was a suggestion of conditional approval of the site plan related to that, and basically that you're going to be applying for alteration of terrain permit, and as long as you get your alteration of terrain permit, then we're good.
Okay.
And then under 5, other considerations, there was a recommendation about the reclamation plan and what it should cover. But those seemed pretty much in line with what we heard.
Okay, so that's what the RSA 155E is, has to do with the
Correct.
reclamation plan, okay,
Yeah.
all right. Does the rest of the board agree? So we put a condition in there that there's an alteration of terrain permit as required, which I'm assuming there is, but we can ask.
Have they seen this letter?
I don't know, have you
seen this
the
letter? Do you want to, you want my copy?
Okay.
Here, I have a copy for you.
I just underlined that part and that part, just the 2 parts we just talked about.
Here's a map that came along with it. No.
So it didn't really seem like a game changer, but it seemed like good information that we could just include.
Many of these were discussed by the board
Right.
at the last meeting,
Right.
when they initially presented.
Just gonna give them the opportunity to read that.
Yeah, it's pretty dense. I mean, she went over our minutes. She did a nice job kind of going over our minutes, addressing the things that we had addressed, as
Yep.
Brian said, and then just giving us those additional thoughts, which are just good for clarity.
All right, so unless you, I think it seems like the board thinks that you addressed that, the AOT permit, I know you mentioned in the last meeting, and there is a reclamation plan. So unless you feel like you need to address any specific things, I think we'll just make sure that there's an, that those are conditions in the approval.
Yeah, there was one other thing just that's kind of outside of the permitting. We do have a response program, just for the board's
Yeah, that's good.
knowledge, because of the proximity to the aquifer.
Okay.
That's something that we do. We have cleanup programs if there were, so.
Great, thank
Did you get a copy of the map that they sent, the aquifer map? Okay. And the area of greatest significance is across the road, but knowing that they're over a portion of the aquifer.
Yep. All right, so unless the board has any more discussion, or if you feel like you need to respond, I'll open up to the public hearing, and I'll just remind everyone this evening that if you're going to speak, it needs to be either in front of that microphone or that microphone, which I forgot to instruct both of you. No, I forgot. We used to have microphones everywhere, now there's just 2. So if anyone's going to speak, please come up to the microphone, one of the microphones, and state your name and where you live. So it is 6:40, and I would invite the public to come up to speak one at a time.
Looks like it's my turn. I am Ken Weidman, and I'm Vice Chair of the Bridgewater Planning Board. Mike Capsalis was at your May meeting, and I believe requested that the reclamation plan include the contiguous Bridgewater pit as well. I'm here tonight to see if that has happened. There's a resounding silence.
No, please, go ahead, but just in the microphone, in front of the microphone. please.
As we were never, Mike never asked for that, but the pit is recognized as a grandfathered pit, which we would follow the reclamation guidelines of RSA 155E in Bridgewater. But that was never, he never spoke of that concern, as to my knowledge, maybe.
I don't remember it either.
I mean, I'm not familiar with 155E, but I don't feel like if this is something that's at the town level, we can't regulate something that's happening in Bridgewater. No.
But we do have recognition from the town of Bridgewater that it's grandfathered pit. It was an active pit before October 1979,
Right.
and that under that guidelines, we'll follow the RSA 155E for reclamation.
Well, I think there's no reclamation plan on file in Bridgewater.
Yeah, there,
I'm gonna stop right here just because we just can't be discussing what's happening in Bridgewater here because we need to be talking about what's happening in Plymouth, and we can really only manage the conversation and the logistics of what's happening on the Plymouth side of the border. So,
Well, hey, I do understand, but what had been relayed to me by Mike is that, Mike Capsalis, is that, and I may be wrong on this, was that you would be exiting your Plymouth property by coming into the Bridgewater property? Is that correct?
same thing we're doing now, but I don't know if we should I?
you can address, technically, you're supposed to address all discussion through the board and specifically through me, so, but please feel free to answer the question.
Yeah, there would be no change in the traffic access as it is now. But this is I can definitely come and meet with the board and go over everything and do that at a time on Bridgewater's, meeting to go over this. 'Cause
I think that would be very
happy
appropriate,
to.
and that
Okay,
would
I
be
think-
welcome.
So I think as long as we're good, we're going to make sure that the RSA 155E is addressed in as a condition, as is the alteration of terrain permit, and we're just talking about what's within the bounds, or within the Plymouth boundary. So,
The board should understand that we have no problems with the pit as it's being run now. We just don't know what effect it's going to have by having an adjoining pit coming back into Bridgewater and using the same means of egress and exit, so.
Can I make a clarification?
please.
So at our first meeting with the applicant, Mike was here. Mike stood up and spoke in favor of the application, saying that Bridgewater was in support of it. We then did a notice of potential regional impact, and the town of Bridgewater did not submit a letter, which would have been the appropriate place to state this requirement. So I think what's been suggested already of the applicant going and meeting with Bridgewater to discuss that component is fine, because we, as you said, can't weigh in. We can only address the Plymouth side.
Okay, no, I understand that, and I think that's all fair, and
We can set a time.
We'd be happy to weigh in if you
yeah,
decide
we
it's a
meet,
development of regional
third
impact and you
Tuesday
notice us,
of,
so.
There you go.
each month. So just let us know, and it would be great for you to come in. Appreciate that. Okay, all right.
Are there any other comments from you, or any other comments from the public?
Not for me. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. All right, so seeing no other comments, it is 6:45. I'm closing the public hearing, bringing it back to the board. Any discussion from the board?
Well, since the AOT is part of, a requirement of the final approval, I haven't seen me being on the PERLAC board, we haven't seen the AOT yet. I guess, could you tell me the progress of that?
Yeah, we wouldn't, it's really doesn't make a lot of sense for us to move forward with an alteration of terrain permit if we don't get local approvals. So we started the process with getting our zoning. We've moved on to you guys here at the planning board. We'd seek conditional approval that the project wouldn't move forward unless we had the alteration of terrain permit approved by New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. So
after
once
this-
we feel comfortable that the project's moving forward with the town in all ways, we will proceed to the DES to get that permit.
Okay. Sounds good.
Questions or comments from the board?
Nope.
So we have a couple conditions that if we are going to vote on approval, it would be the condition of the alteration of terrain permit and the condition of having a reclamation plan pursuant to RSA 155E.
Can we add a third condition, which is just to get a copy of their spill prevention plan that they've offered? Just to have it on
Yeah.
record.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Could I interject here, is that the plan set that we've provided has the reclamation plan
Okay.
in it? I don't remember what sheet number is, but it's the actual design page. I think it's either sheet 3 or 4 of the set.
So we don't need to add that as a condition then?
No.
I believe that's the sheet you're looking at right there, should have the proposed grading on it,
Okay.
correct? As the benches, the low point in the pit, that kind of stuff.
Okay. I guess I wouldn't recognize a reclamation plan unless someone told me that's what it was, so, thank you.
No problem.
Okay, so that brings us back down to 2 conditions.
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion that we approve the application as submitted with 2 conditions. One, that the applicant get alteration of terrain permit from the state, and 2, that they supply us with their spill prevention plan as well.
Second that one.
All right, any other discussion from the board before we vote? Okay. All those in favor of the motion on the table?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming back.
Too late.
Just for clarification, upon approval of the conditions and we come back, do we come back? No. Does the town give us an actual paper permit, which, that may be a dumb question, but in other towns it has come up?
If it's a dumb question, I don't know the answer to it, so,
Help us, Brian.
Help you, I just wanted to make sure you directed it to me. No, generally for planning board stuff, we do not.
So it's
If
just
you'd
the-
like one, we'll provide one.
At least a letter or something.
Absolutely. And I'll be your point of contact when you submit those documents, and I'll make sure they go to the board. You have all my contact information, Josh? Yeah, okay, great.
Thank you, Brian.
Do you need intaglio print on the outside and a gold seal? Or?
I know, it's stupid, but it.
There you go.
Have a good night, folks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
all right. Paper shuffle. All right, next up, we have a site plan review of a proposal from Walmart, Real Estate Business Trust, owner of PID number 213-008 on Tenny Mountain Highway to erect a 860 square foot canopy and restripe parking spaces on PID number 213-008 to accommodate an online grocery pickup program. This is in the industrial commercial development zone.
Madam Chair, it was pointed out to me before the meeting that the 860 square foot figure is incorrect.
Okay.
It's closer to 1,300,
It's
correct?
1307, yes.
1307. Okay, so we will just ask the applicant to present a brief presentation about this project, and then we will make a decision, we'll ask questions about the completeness of this application, and then we can ask more, we have time for more specific information about the project. The first round from you is a good time to talk about any type of waivers you're requesting through the site plan review process.
Sure, so I guess the first question is for the board, because I don't want to go into it if you understand it. Does everybody understand what the online grocery pickup program is?
Yep.
Okay, so that makes that part easy. So with that, in implementing it at the store, there's really 2 components to it. There's the internal component and the external component. Internal component, for the most part, is part of our permit documents and construction documents that we will submit for interior alteration as part of our building permit. The exterior component to it is basically restriping of 13 spaces to 10 spaces. And the reason we restripe them, well, it's twofold. One, we go from a 9-foot 6 width space to a 12-foot width space. We also hairpin stripe them, so it's a double line. And that restriping basically is, one, gives the customer a little bit more cushion in going in and out of those spaces, and also gives the associate a little bit more room when they bring the product and the groceries out to the car. The second component of the exterior is a canopy. So we have a canopy that we're putting up that covers 6 parking spaces. Basically, it's 4 posts, so you'll have 2 spaces between each post. And the canopy itself is steel and almost like a tensile structure. So it's trusses, and I have a picture of one that we've done in Bangor, Maine, so that they would understand what it actually looks like.
Thank you.
The canopy itself and the parking spaces go in this row right here. The area of the store that gets altered is right here, where currently the storage area and the recycling, and there's also part of that is part of the store's upfront office area. So part of that becomes the marshaling area for the goods, so that the associates can marshal the goods, keep them stored in the front there, and then when the customer gets there or when the customer's selected time comes up, they'll bring the groceries out and put them in the car. I believe the reason, and Mr. Murphy are probably better than I, we were asked to come before the board was because this is considered a structure as part of the site plan.
Any questions from the board about the completeness of this application? Specifically looking at the waivers, I have one question about that. The one that says, all abutting landowners, physical features and uses of abutting land within 200 feet of the site. I'm assuming that means that that's on the plan itself. But I just want to make sure that doesn't mean that we didn't notify abutters. That abutters get notified in the same way they would any other.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right.
Absolutely. I mean, you can pretty much take that as a given.
I do.
least-
I just wanted to make sure that was correct.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. But for me, all the waivers made sense, assuming that the original site plan review from Walmart is on file and contains the information that would be part of the comprehensive site project instead of just a small structure. So what does everyone else think about the?
The only, I just wanted to, I think it was clarified by the presentation that the new version has the structure out in the parking lot. The version we were given a review for tonight had it next to the building.
That is correct, and let me just address that. Initially, we try and get these things rolling because we know that it's a process to get on agendas and things of that nature. So the initial intent was for it to be on the side of the building and close to the building. We submitted, got the ball rolling, so to speak, but in doing that, we also start preparing our documents and working with the canopy designer for the structure. And what happened is, given the location of the canopy on the side of the building there, we had a major issue with snowdrift up against the side of the building there, because the wind would just blow the snow over the side of the building and on top of the canopy. So we all elected to kind of relocate the canopy in a better location.
Makes sense.
That makes sense. All right, so any other questions, comments about the completeness of this application? Or a motion about the completeness of this application?
Make a motion to accept it as complete.
A second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Any other questions from the board about this project? All right, it's 6:55. Let's open it up to the public hearing. Again, if anyone would like to speak, please come up to a microphone Anyone like to speak of any nature about this project? Okay, it's still 6:55. Closing the public hearing, bring it back to the board. Any discussion?
We need a minor site plan review process, because this is a perfect example of something that's a relatively minor alteration.
Yep. And that's important to note, and I think we will keep noting that until we
Right.
figure that out.
Yeah.
Yep. All right.
As long as we remember it when we go through the documents later this year.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
We'll just revert
We'll
to
just
the
keep
minutes.
talking about, yeah. All right. So no other discussion. Is there a motion?
I would make a motion that we, this application.
Approve.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Everybody have a great evening.
Thank you, you too.
You too.
Actually, even better than a minor site plan would be if we had the authority just to let Brian approve stuff like that. But
There is a way through that. I think Sharon looked into it.
Did she?
When she was here, yeah.
I know that RSA's make it
There are
hard in New
some
Hampshire.
administrative things.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, we ran into it, especially in the cases of reusing existing buildings.
Right.
I mean, if it's a site plan and the site hasn't changed, it really doesn't belong in that category. I mean, there should be like almost a change of use document instead.
Right. All right.
All right. Are you ready for the next one? Next up, a one-lot subdivision from the parent parcel PID number 234-018, which is 3.41 acres, requested by Mountain Stream Properties through its agent Mountain Mapping, subdividing out a parcel of 1.94 acres for the new lot and reserving 1.47 acres for the parent parcel. They both front on Texas Hill Road and are in the agricultural zone.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The latest edition of the plan. And the only changes to this plan are test pits. The test pits for the septic systems. And the lot line changed a little bit because we wanted to make the housing sites the best that we could on the property. So that's why there's a jog, whereas before there was a straight line. We're very happy with this. We think it's two nice house sites. We've set the corners within the line. It's submitted to the state of New Hampshire for her subdivision approval. That's pending.
All right. Any questions from the board about the completeness of this application?
Nope.
Someone could make a motion about it, accepting it as complete.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept this as complete.
Second.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Didn't give anyone room to oppose, but anyway. Moving on to, I can't quite see the line jog on the, so if we could get a closer look at the, or if there are other copies that we could pass around, I think that would be helpful.
Does Brian have a corrected copy?
This has changed since Clifford submitted the last one?
No, I don't believe so.
Are we looking, not looking?
Yeah,
This
the one
one's
we have-
dated May 27.
Didn't recall the.
One we have doesn't show the jog, but
Okay,
the lot area stayed the same.
you can see it a little better from your position with your new eyes.
Yeah, it just comes in and drops down and goes back up.
And I have some smaller.
Just screwed up the microphone, that's okay.
Thank you.
So it did.
Share.
Sure.
Straight across.
Yeah.
I have the reduced ones.
Where is this one, Texas Hill Road?
That's what I want to clarify. I think this is across from Roger's house, his mother's house.
Roger.
So, okay, they maintain the acreage, so.
I think that's the
Paperwork.
Okay, so Roger Oh, okay, this would have been Mom's house here, right, and Rogers is there.
This was,
Old house to be demolished. Okay, that's all, they're gonna demolish it.
this one here, according to that.
Oh, for that to be.
Yeah.
Say that
So
too.
this is
Welcome to my world.
old house? Well, where's Rogers' house?
Across the street,
His is over here.
yeah.
All right, any questions about this? Questions or comments? The foundation remnants, or is that just the old barn that was there? Is that?
I
is that
guess
the
so.
Property, okay.
So this was the whole.
Clifford Mask could probably address that issue.
It's not, it's more just curiosity, not really pertaining to what we've got going on here.
Well, I just wanted to clarify the location, that it is the White Cape on Texas Hill Road, just so we know the spot and we know where it is along Glove Hollow Brook. But
Okay.
it is. Thank you.
And the house that is currently there, that was next to that barn, is that house staying, being renovated? Because there's something going on.
It's going to be
North
taken
of that.
down. There's a note on the plan to that effect. That's
On the other
correct.
side of the street is the note, Chris. With an arrow.
Okay, to be demolished and removed.
This land abuts, like, national forest land, or there's something about where that abuts?
Green Acre Woodlands.
Right, that's not, it's like open space, well,
And they were, of course, on the abutter list, and one of their employees, I think he's a surveyor, Thomas Hahn, called me and we discussed what was going on, and he said that's fine, and had no objection.
Is there a conservation easement on that property?
I do not believe so. On the lumber company land? There could very well be.
If there is, they would be considered an abutter and would need to be notified as well, so.
Well, we did
They were.
about.
They were. Oh, no, the Green Acre Woodlands, but if there is a conservation
Oh, I
easement,
see your
whoever
point.
is the conservation easement holder also is considered an abutter as well, so.
And my guess is there, I don't know for
I don't-
sure,
yeah, I don't
but
know that line is.
I know there is one further down from Green
I was
Acre.
gonna say, if it was on the property but not abutting
Yeah.
the subject property, would they still need to be notified?
I-
Because there's land between them, which would disqualify them for normal abutter status. That's just for clarification.
Oh, okay, I'm not sure if it's normal abutter status. So can you say that again?
Okay, so you have the property line.
Yep.
If the conservation easement is located a
Oh,
1,000
if-
feet
yeah, yeah,
away,
I see what you're saying, yeah. If
it's
the-
not a
yeah,
direct abutter.
Right, right.
So I didn't know if that would also require.
I'm not sure on that point, but I would hate to not have a butter notification for something like
Right.
that. So that would be my concern. Sometimes it's hard to tell in the tax records if there's a conservation easement. It can be tricky.
Yes.
I don't know.
I think so.
May have.
And they just split that.
Why don't I call Mr. Hahn and ask him? Instead of doing a lot of unnecessary work, he'll either say yes or no. If he says yes, I'll research it. If he says no, is that suitable to the board?
I mean, what does the board think? It becomes I just know that the Green Acre Woodlands there are easements on their property further up the hill from there. You just don't want to misnotice something.
So you're saying up on Plymouth Mountain or somewhere in that vicinity?
Yeah, it's owned by Green Acre Woodlands, but it's got a conservation easement by, I can't remember who.
Okay.
That's a very big piece of property.
And I know the trail that the Conservation Commission maintains has an easement on either side of that. It's follows the trail, basically. And I'm not familiar with anything else, but I know we actually went out of our way to get that conservation easement. So I don't think there's a blanket conservation easement, but I'm not 100% sure. So I think asking Tom Hahn would probably make sense.
So if we were going to do that, we've accepted the application. Would we hold off at this point and get that clarification?
I feel like the clarification is important. I would think so. We can open the public hearing and continue it since there are people, I'm assuming here this evening, that would like to speak, and if they can't make the next meeting, I'm happy to open and
Right.
continue the public hearing.
A conservation easement would be a deed record, though, correct? So it should show up in our property tax maps.
Sometimes it's tricky. I don't know. I don't look at property tax maps as much
Yeah.
as you do. I just know that I work for an organization that often does not get noticed on stuff like
Yeah.
this, and I think sometimes it gets confusing and not always straightforward. I'm just not sure.
Okay.
So I'm not trying to delay this process, but
So I think procedurally, it's important that we do what you're suggesting. But for the applicants, while they're here, I can't imagine what will come up if we do extend it, because the lots they're doing everything that they are allowed to do within that zone.
right.
According to our existing regulations,
Right.
it's a permitted use, the lot sizes, they're satisfying all that stuff.
Yeah.
So we can provide the process
Right.
for them to weigh in case there's an issue we're unaware of. But
Right.
aside from that, there shouldn't be surprises, I wouldn't.
I wouldn't think so,
Right.
but
Yep.
yeah, but a conservation easement, whoever has the easement owns the development right, so they do own a portion of that parcel.
Okay.
So,
I'm not aware of that, any hiking trail being anywhere, when I've been on the property, anywhere that you could see it. It's certainly not
It's
within.
far away.
Yeah,
I mean, a hiking trail is
be
not of
hundreds
any.
of feet,
more on your side,
thousands of
Chris.
feet away.
It's a separate issue.
What,
The
this,
trail you're
the
talking
trail
about.
is on the, it's to the north.
To Plymouth Mountain.
Yeah, it's Plymouth Mountain.
Oh, there's abutters and abutters and abutters. So actually, we're talking about the lands behind it, not the Green Acres Woodlands.
No, we are talking about green. So the hiking trail just confused the matter. If
Yeah.
we want to know if there's an easement or not, hiking trail or not.
Conservation easement has nothing to do with the trail itself. It's the
Right.
protection, the removal, or the ownership of the development rights on a parcel. And we just don't know if that exists.
And the only reason I threw out the hiking trail is because we specifically had to get an easement for that strip, which sort of would suggest that there was no easement to begin, unless there's an easement on top of an easement, is the only reason I said that.
So can you go through the process and do an approval with the contingency of the response?
I don't feel great about that, because that means we're providing an approval without giving an abutter a chance. Yeah. So,
I mean, worst
But-
case,
We're not even sure they are in a butter.
we don't know.
That's the question.
Right.
Yes. So, I mean, and that would be determined with a phone to Mr. Hahn. Unfortunately, I don't have his phone number on me, or I would call him.
I can give you that number if you want it. I don't have it with me, but.
Oh, okay. No, but, I mean, we're talking about things that are, you know, it just seems to me that there is a way to do this with approval, because the answer would be given yeah or nay, which would prove it one way or the other.
Oh, I see. Okay. So,
Whereas the only
yeah.
issue would be if there was, and then, I mean, you could possibly condition it that a letter from the overriding authority of that conservation easement.
Okay, so we would have to put a condition on there that says if all abutters have been notified, we can approve it. But then does it become a rejected application? And is there any sort, if
there's an easement, do we have to rescind the approval, and does that delay the process for them?
Well, I mean, that's generally why we do conditional approvals for supporting documentation. You know, it's a little bit different than the conditions we generally
Yeah.
extend.
this is a stretch to consider it supporting documentation, because, I mean, it's more procedural than anything else. And I apologize for opening a can of worms with this one.
No, I think it's
All right.
I think it's important
Yeah.
that we get it right.
But I think what we're dancing around is we don't want to make this another month-long process just to have somebody say, no, it's not a conservation easement, everything was done just fine. So if we made a condition of approval that somehow that indicates that the condition of approval is based on the fact that all abutters have been notified. So someone's got to research the conservation easement aspect of it. If we find out there is a conservation easement on this property, that basically means that the application is rejected. And does that mean they have to come back before us, or, do you see what I'm saying?
I
Did
think,
you base it on the conditions of the easement, though? You know,
No,
give them a chance to weigh in.
it's just, it,
okay, so you would have to reject.
In other cases, because that would show that there was a failure of notification. So
Right.
we would have to re-notify
Yeah.
everybody.
So I'm wondering, to keep it cleaner for the applicants, if we accepted it tonight, which we did, right? And if we were to table it to our work session, where we normally don't do applications, but that would only be 2 weeks out.
yeah, on July 4th.
It's actually we had to
Moved
move
it. We did move it.
We
But it
did.
would be early July instead of making them wait a whole other month. And if we could at least get clarity, we could approve it that night, or we could address the issue that comes up. And that way it doesn't drag it out for them, or make them have to
I
resubmit.
think that's probably the cleanest, is to continue it to a date certain upon provision of evidence.
I feel better about
Or
that than
against.
crafting a complicated condition that's
Right.
strange. And I think it's just important to remember that, pretend it's not a conservation easement, pretend one of these other names was potentially left off the list. That's kind of what we're dealing with, so. Just
And
to make that
are you talking about by the person not, or the entity not notified, the holder of the easement? Because Green Acres has been notified, right?
Yes, they're listed
So
as in a
it's-
butter.
It's the holder of the easement.
Holder
Secondary
of the
easement.
easement.
So we couldn't ask Tom Hahn anyway, we'd really want to ask the holder of, I
mean-
guess he could tell if there was.
If there was a holder of the
If there
easement.
was.
Yeah.
There was.
Yeah, yeah,
We
yeah.
know that if there is an easement, they were not notified, but we don't know if there is for sure an easement on that property. That's kind of what we're dealing with.
And, well, opinion only, Madam Chair, is that if it's not located abutting, then it's not abutting.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I agree with that, for sure.
I mean, even if it's contained within an abutting parcel, unless that easement is physically abutting, then I would think that they wouldn't be notified.
Really, what we're trying to do is to not break the law, so,
Or make it more onerous for them.
right,
Right.
so.
I can offer this: if I find out tomorrow that it is, there is an easement there, we could re-notify everybody again. I think there's enough time between now and the work session.
Which I think is the 11th.
Yeah, so we actually bought ourselves some time by having a holiday.
I did move it. I don't remember doing it.
And
I think it
then,
was originally moved. I don't think it was ever planned.
but, you know, that kind of puts it into a different category, though. When, say we find out there was a failure of notification, then we would have to restart the process entirely. If it turns out that it's a negative, then we can approve it at the work session.
Right.
So, you know, one way or the other, it's covered. And, you know, when you get the answer at the work session, it'll either be an approval or that we have another agenda item for the public hearing session.
Now, should we, because there are a number of people that might like to speak on this, I would like to open the public hearing, just so folks don't have to come twice, if that works. So is that acceptable to the rest of the board?
Sounds good.
Okay. All right, it is 7:15. I'd like to open the public hearing, and just a reminder that if anyone would like to speak of any nature of this application, please come to the microphone.
Good evening. My name is Clifford Mask. I'm a resident in Plymouth, New Hampshire. I've also played a role in the subdivision of this property. A couple of concerns or questions I have are, I have no issue with notifying abutters, etc. I know the board agreed that the application was complete and satisfied. So the question I have is, where is the criteria in regards to distance that qualifies for abutting that would keep this from being approved? And if so, playing off this in future for somebody else coming along, that should actually be on the application, knowing that if there is conservation land within abutting land but doesn't directly abut it, that it should be notified as abutters, because that piece of information was not in the package.
So, yeah, I think we just determined that if the conservation land abuts, is a direct abutter,
Right.
of the property. So if there's
What's the criteria? It has to abut directly. Correct.
Yeah.
So if it, right, and that, so we know that. So based on the information that we supported, or supplied, I should say, that we notified the abutters. But the question is coming back to I'm happy with that. We can take it to work session and find out the answer. But rather than dismissing it, could we make it contingent for the next meeting so we don't lose out 1 or 2 months rather than denying the approval?
So we
Because
plan.
of failure to notify an abutter. I guess that's my
So we
request.
plan on, I can't say that we will be able to make a decision because that's a board discussion that we would have on the 11th when we reopen the public hearing, assuming that we do need to renotice it. But, I'm not sure if I'm answering the
We
question.
accepted it as complete, and then we noticed this one potential wrinkle. So we'll figure this out in the next couple days.
Okay.
And if that were to come up, we'd have to weigh in on that.
Yep.
Hopefully it doesn't, there's no issue. And then we'd be able to approve it on the 11th.
Yep.
I do agree with what you shared, and maybe it's something we add to our checklist, because it would be good for us. I wasn't thinking about conservation easements if you hadn't raised the question. So we probably should add to our procedures.
Okay. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And that would clarify it going forward. We just
Right.
add the word direct into abutters or holders of easements.
Yeah, including easements, yeah.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
fair.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I appreciate the work session opportunity.
Yeah,
moving
no
forward,
problem.
so.
We
Yeah, 'cause
certainly don't intend to make this process difficult for you. We're just trying to make
Oh,
sure
yeah, I
we're
appreciate it.
procedurally following the rules, so nobody gets in trouble.
We've done a lot of work bringing it to this point, and then, we're looking to move forward and then build for someone, and then take down the existing farmhouse and preserve the timber frame for that property, and just get that property cleaned up and just kind of move forward on it and not lose any more time. So, appreciate it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate the board's concern very much, and we understand the position you're in. It's just that with planning board meetings once every month and the building seasons are so short that the pressures are huge.
Any other comments from the public? Okay, I'm gonna close the public hearing at 7:17. Just a quick question, so you're gonna preserve the timbers, is the new house on this property going to be in the same footprint? Or will it have to get moved back so it becomes a conforming structure?
It'll be up the hill. We have a very nice house site.
Cool.
We have the test pit right over here with TBM, that's a temporary benchmark right in that area.
Good.
Gets away from the road noise, is a little bit better view. And, it's just a very nice little area for the build house.
It is. Okay, so we are going to continue this to a date certain on July 11th. Is that correct? Is that the date? I missed the memo about.
It's on this calendar. The original calendar. I don't remember
Okay,
any
I see, yeah.
additional change from
need a
this,
motion?
right?
You want a motion to
Might as
continue
well.
it?
Well, if it shows it as, Dawn would have flagged it if it showed up as a meeting on July 4th.
Yeah.
She'd move it to the next
She
one.
did.
Yeah, so that's it.
That's the change.
That's the memo I missed. I missed
It's the
the,
first real Thursday of the month.
Yeah.
No offense to anybody.
Or Thursday.
I thought we were gonna get a night off, but yeah, I guess not. Okay, so I think a motion is better than no motion. So, so a motion to continue the hearing to a date certain of July 11th.
So moved.
I was gonna say that.
Yes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chairman,
Thank you.
and members of the planning board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That one made my brain hurt a little bit.
All these plans, you want to keep them? You're certainly welcome to.
Thank you.
So much paper. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop by at my office and get Tom Hahn's phone number and immediately call Clifford with that. And then Clifford will Get to Brian.
If he wants to shoot me an email on the receipt of the phone call, I'll be able to get it tomorrow morning.
Okay. Thank you, Brian.
Where does it say the house is coming up?
Supposedly, it said like across the street, they indicated the map. I don't see it.
Oh, I always pack away my minutes and then,
Thank you again.
Thank you, Joe.
thank you.
Thank you.
What do you know?
Thanks.
This one says Old House. Beacon.
Oh, okay.
All right.
I guess the house is gonna be like this.
What are they doing over here then? Because there's a big clearing over here.
I don't have anything else. Any updates?
Land had like 20
Brian?
acres of that
No,
old
we've been
house.
conspicuously light in correspondence.
Okay.
If there was another lot, it's another
Great.
name. 'Cause it
I
was-
don't know, but Bill might
I don't
have
know
some
what
information.
Sold it.
Perlac concerning Ambrose, is that?
Maybe neighbor
Well,
bought
that's, we're just, it's the waiting game, I guess. We'll
some. I knew the
wait for
family
the
owned it.
permit application and,
But I mean, that fits well with the advisory committee, that
Whoever bought it.
they need to provide that as soon as they obtain it.
yeah, well, actually, we're having a meeting next Tuesday. Perlac is. I don't think we'll see the permit by then.
Probably not.
And at some point, we'll receive a heads up from DES, and then we've got generally like a few weeks to turn it around. And we send out a subcommittee to do a site review and make comments to DES, and then they issue the permit.
Anything else from the board? Apologies for the confusion about that. I've been on the wrong side of misnotification when it comes to conservation easements a handful of times in the past couple of months, so just wanted.
What's interesting about that, you notice that because it's Green Acre Woodland, but any of those, like the Harans could have.
Right.
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 Their property.
And I just know I tend to look at them in the town of Holderness, but I know it's difficult. You can't always tell just by looking at the tax card. Sometimes the information can get buried in weird ways depending on how it was done.
I'm
So,
wondering too, if that question of holders of conservation easements is actually referring to the subject property and not to abutters.
Say that again?
Yeah. If the conservation easement, say, was overlaid on that land, and it wasn't on abutting property, but was on the subject parcel,
Right.
that's when those folks would be notified for sure.
I think it should be both.
So, yeah, but again, it's all about proximity with that, too.
That's a great question, though. How do you know? I mean,
Do we have an accurate map of all easements?
That's a good question, that's right, that's a better
Because if
question.
we had, we could consult the map.
that is maybe some good questions for the LRPC to just,
That's true.
yeah. So,
But not every easement, as you know, gets into the granite system. We do stuff for
Right.
towns all the time, and then they'll give us 3 or 4 properties that don't show up green,
yeah,
that have easements, because someone just happens to know,
yeah.
right.
Chris is saying.
Yeah, and that's the same with some of the property cards. It gets, some of these easements are old, I don't know, it's very funky.
If we could get an up-to-date map, then it's something that we could quickly, Brian would be able to take a look at it, we'd be able to take a look at it if we
Yeah.
think it's near something, we could talk about it.
Yeah, I'm only aware of a few in town, is the Plymouth Mountain easement, Walter Newton.
I was thinking of the Favres.
Yeah, this is kind of in the
Yeah,
middle
well,
of a bunch of
And
them.
that's really applicable. I mean, in fact, it's a good thing you pointed that out because, they put prohibitions on development on their property and so.
There's 3 or 4 around this property, not necessarily adjacent to, but,
Right.
and it gets back to our work session a couple weeks ago, we were talking about the agricultural district. And here we are, 2 relatively small lots in the agricultural district. It's gonna, if we were to see more small lots get carved off, it's gonna be an emerging issue in that district, just to make sure if they're near an easement that we're
Right.
following procedure, even if those groups never comment, or
Yeah.
there's nothing they can really say.
Right.
Chris, you have a list of all the easements that's administered by the commission, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so we can start putting that
start.
in, and it's just a matter of finding the ones that are held.
And yeah, I can reach out to the LRPC and just see if they have any guidance for how that works, or any suggestions, because things can be fairly
I think the
complex.
Favre easement is held by the same folks that hold the easement at Quincy Bog.
Oh, yeah,
It is Pemmy Baker Land
Yep.
Trust.
Yeah, that's it.
I mean, if we could get a map and then have it vetted by staff and vetted by Conservation Commission and add any parcels that aren't there
Yep.
and then update it,
It'd be a great addition to the master plan as well.
would be, yeah, be a more accurate representation.
yep.
I have a question about this response. Talking about number 4, anticipated emissions such as white noise, smoke, blah, blah, blah. And when they made the initial proposal, they talked about the hours of operation with the possibility of round the clock. And they talked about, the question was raised whether they would be crushing or not. And he said not at this time. Do you ever make a contingency to come back if there is crushing? Because that changes the whole noise
Well,
aspect of
they
the
don't know how
project.
much material they're going to find to crush in the first place. From
Right.
what they had presented, they don't have an ongoing daily crushing operation going on. So they accumulate the materials. They bring in their mobile crusher, they crush it up, and then they exit the property with it. And that would be more along the lines of the noise ordinance stuff. And granted, I don't really know the answer to that question, I guess. You know, it would just seem to me that, yes, it would happen during normal hours of operation. They did talk about emergency services, but that would just be loading sand in the middle of the
Right,
night, which
right.
is machinery noise. It's not a crushing noise.
An emergency is an emergency.
Right. But, you know, as far as the other, it may be that they would be crushing for 2 days and not come back for 3 months.
Right.
So,
I guess my question is just, does that leave open the possibility for a usage that has a different impact on the abutters?
I think in that case, it would become a change of use, and hopefully that would be caught by just a noise ordinance issue.
Right.
And,
They'd come back.
yeah.
Just curious, thanks.
Perlac did a pit in Campton, and they were crushing. And there was a house that was probably like 100 yards down the road, and they just struck a deal with the company not to, you know, or to make sure that they stop at a certain point and stuff. And there was really good collaboration, but it doesn't have to be that way, I guess.
Right.
Were we gonna work on some of the Taskmaster stuff?
Oh. Or we could do that at the next, I'm not prepared.
Yeah, let's do it tomorrow.
Well,
We pushed it down, just so you know, I
keep
mean,
pushing
we
it
pushed
back,
it 3 months now. The
Yeah.
little stuff that
Yeah.
there've been interest in kind of attacking some of the other implementation actions, we haven't touched them.
Yeah.
I thought we were gonna touch some of them tonight, but.
Yeah,
It's up to you guys, as far as I'm concerned. If I'm the one that's,
you're the
I mean,
taskmaster.
it's fine with me. I did not, I reviewed last meeting. I didn't review this meeting.
I mean,
I didn't add it to the agenda because I figured that
I thought
this
we
would
had said work
take
session,
longer
but I
than it
don't.
did, to be
Yeah.
honest with you.
So I wanted to say that I passed along the link to the plan to some people at the high school who are organizing extended learning opportunities, which are, I don't know if that was an extended learning opportunity or not.
Line A here and there.
Yeah, that was. So they're hoping to double the ELOs next year, in which, if we wanted to take a look at some of these tasks and see if there were any that would be appropriate for a high school student's ELO.
That's a good idea, yeah.
But I sent it to the guidance counselor who's doing all of it. But I think that if we were to make some specific suggestions about tasks that might be fitting and may or may not involve some mentorship from somebody that we can coordinate, it might be more successful. And just, here's the link, good luck. But that might be a nice opportunity to get. I was thinking of the community calendars on here. I'm freezing all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Brian has it set for 7:30, so.
Well, no, it could be the
everybody
ghost
out of
of
Freeze 'em
town
out.
hall.
Cooking you out
All right,
didn't
somebody's
work.
trying to shut me up.
With that point, I mean, we've talked about some site plan and subdivision things that are in there.
Yep.
And then we had the zoning stuff that we're dealing with. I wonder if we were to run through it, either together or just one or two of us run through it and just color code them. Site plan and subdivision, don't have to talk about them, we'll take all those and put them together.
Yep.
Zoning, we're dealing with it, and then things like the extended learning opportunity, there'll be some other categories probably that fall outside of that might be non-regulatory things, but we could, I don't know, we could code a lot of these and
Yep.
know where we're at and that we're tackling a lot.
I think that might, so just two people sit down and just start hitting two
Yeah.
brains on it at once without having to do, I feel like if we sit all of it, we can go through that here and I'm fine to do that. I just don't know if it takes all of us to do that,
No,
so.
there's a chance that any one of us will take it down a rabbit hole.
What do you mean?
I mean, I'd be happy to sit and go through it with somebody if we just agreed to whatever we're gonna label it as, and just have people, one or two people. I guess we can't have three of us, so
Right.
let's just be two of us.
It seems like maybe we have one person who sort of keeps the consistency in the project, and we could even have someone who sits down and does like 2 sections with that person. I keep pointing to Mr. Box Checker, Taskmaster, Coffee Drinker, but,
Coffee drinker. Your title's getting long.
yeah. We'll add something every meeting. So I'm not sure if that way makes sense, but it doesn't have to, I mean, the Taskmaster thing, I think we've sort of, it doesn't have to be you, I just keep gesturing at you, but it just seems like having some consistency on how it's done.
Yeah.
But other people can step in and look through it.
Or clearing how, like the taskmaster could be that people could pass things
Yep.
to a point person, so someone's keeping track of that stuff. There's a bunch of, I don't remember them off the top of my head, but when I read through this thing, there's a bunch of implementation items that are going to require research, sometimes getting in the field, and I think a lot of the parking stuff, it sounds like Frank would be a good resource for that. But, you know, those are the kind of things we could set up, you know, a student doing, you know, some of this stuff, so.
So I think what we need are maybe some like colored dots and, or something like that, that's like just color codes things as far as what we can-
Highlighters.
Highlighters work, yep, or tabs, I don't know. So, can you start coordinating something like that? Just getting together with people to start going through?
Sure.
Is anyone particularly interested in being part of the Taskmaster ad hoc subcommittee?
Sure.
I can help, you know, whenever anybody I don't have children to pick up from school anymore. So that kind of frees me up. So if you get really desperate, you call me, okay?
Now, we can meet with 3, right?
No,
I thought 4 was quorum.
Got you there.
there we go. All right, 3 people. I think 3 people doing it one time would get, we
Might be
don't
a
have to
game.
overthink this, yeah.
Yeah.
But are those the 4 categories that make sense to start? Site plan, subdivision, so those kind of changes, zoning, which we can fold into what we're doing now, and then extended learning opportunity / research, like
Yep.
Chris said.
Yeah.
And then we can just see what's left.
Did you say short-term stuff on there at all?
No, I didn't.
Okay, I wonder, since I think that's maybe just things that may be an overlapping thing, but,
Yeah, if they don't
To
need
look
to
at-
go into the land use regulations, if
Yeah.
they're really that short term. So a 5th category, short term.
and that's pretty much all the colors of highlighters that exist, so.
Oh, no.
That's more, huh?
All right, we're giving this to Bridget.
It'll be so pretty.
She'll have the whole thing marbled,
You never know.
Be a work of art.
whatever that thing is.
Hot pink and fluorescent yellow striped means,
Okay.
So did we get a third out of that? Or was that just a question?
Well,
You got a third?
I thought we had 3.
Oh, great.
I'm not volunteering,
Yeah.
but I could volunteer if you want. What, it's up to, do you need another person?
Let's just do it. Let's just start. Let's just, in the next couple of weeks, get it before the 11th. You and I will sit down and we'll color the crap out of this.
If you want to come to the Enterprise Center and you want to move fast, I'm happy to help too.
Okay.
So,
thank you. I don't have a ton of time outside of
Okay.
here
it's,
right now.
there's not a lot of time between now and the 11th with holidays and summer.
Summer, you
Wherever,
said?
wherever it may be.
I think we can make it happen.
Anything else?
I would like to make a motion.
I'm sorry, I was
Sorry,
silent
Frank, I'm
gesture.
sorry.
Almost.
I can make a motion to have Frank come up.
Yes.
Just Frank. I would like to say that the part in our land use about projects having regional impacts has value, as we saw tonight, between two different towns, and there are other project potentials that will affect two towns. I think one thing that I found as a person out in the audience is that it seemed like it was out of sequence, and maybe it's only because this is relatively new, that when a person's putting in an application that would meet the criteria, that's when it should start, so that the person could have the benefit of getting that out to those towns and getting connected, and then if there's any recommendations from those towns, the person or the applicant can already have tried to mitigate the issue or address the issue. So when they come to the planning board meeting, the response is, of course, obviously given to you, but then the applicant also has stuff that they've already worked on. They're notified. They're not surprised by stuff here at the meeting. As we found with Bridgewater, the last meeting, I thought Bridgewater was on board, and now we have an element of doubt that there's not that communication element. So where the value of that whole process of having regional impact is valid, and it's a value, I think getting into it, it looks like we need to look and see how we can make it happen at the pre-application, whatever you want to call it. And also just listening to the process of the three different applicants. That's why we have the planning board. It was worked very well. And also I'll let you know that I've been working with the Plymouth State University's people that deal with all the mapping, and they just got a new printer, a whole new system. And in my research of trying to determine what we call the downtown, the village commercial zone, and the main street has led to some very big surprises. And so I'm in the process of getting a singular map of those elements that we want to talk about, the downtown area, all in the same scale, and having the elements of reference that the board would use to do some of the implementation that's on the master plan, which is what I'm all about. My first thing is the downtown parking system, and then economic development. So that's my focus of my work. And this next coming week, I'm hoping to get a hold of the map with the new machine running. And but I will also point out that I think we can get the map of the environmentally sensitive zone, all the wetlands, and the conservation easement elements all on one mapping, on one scale. So, but thank you.
Can we
Thank you.
invite him onto the agenda one meeting when he has that, so we can look at it? during
Yeah, I
the
think we
meeting?
said that,
By August.
yeah, in August, I think.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of this, and then this would help. The reason I've got an office over in Chase Street, it's right next to the Circle program. I'm trying to get an element that we can give to the citizens, because part of our problems with the last 40 years of our master plan systems is the citizens just don't read. So you have a nice typed up plan, but they don't see that in picture form. They don't see the end result of why we're doing it and what would be the result of all this effort. And so we've lost the implementation factor. So I'm going to try to turn it around and get the business community connected, and then put this in picture form so the average citizen can look at it and say, hey, this is why we're trying to address the issues here of our rezoning of the village commercial zone, which is a desperate, I think that's the first one we should look at, because it's so out of date and out of effectiveness on the land that it covers. But, so I'm taking the initiative to try to get something going as a citizen to help put this in a means where the average citizen taxpayers can acknowledge all the work and all those elements that we have through all our meetings about our master plan and the future of the town of Plymouth. So, anyway,
Thank you.
that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thanks, Frank.
To amplify on the point that Frank brought up about the regional impact notification, it's the board's job to do it, to determine that,
Yep,
but you don't see it until you open the application.
yep.
So, and I had a conversation with the town council about the proper way to do this, and he was saying that a lot of the developers in the southern part of the state who realize that this is going to be going on will already give the postage and the letter with their application. So they'll do it right up front. So when it comes to time for the acceptance vote, you already have the return from that.
Yep.
It's not something that we can require, but folks that are aware of this, and deal with it on almost a daily basis, they just default, go ahead and do it, just to smooth the way.
Right. As we're updating the site plan regs too, we can even have a box that's like, is this a project that's a potential
Yes.
development of regional impact, with a quick definition of what that is. I mean,
Just
it's
a
in our site
checklist
plan
on there
regs
would be-
anyway, but we could have a box there that just, I think,
Makes me think.
part of it is just being transparent in the process. So like Frank said, that people aren't like, what do you mean development of regional impact? So they know that that's just something that we're going to be talking about with a lot of different applications. And I've been told we might get the first development of regional impact notice that I've
Really?
seen since we've been on the board from another town.
Really?
Yeah,
Can you say?
I've just been told that they might be coming from, so, well, yeah,
It's just hearsay at this point.
it's just hearsay, yeah. Yeah. Anyway. No spoilers.
What were you gonna say earlier, Bonnie? You were making a motion
Oh.
about something.
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
Second it?
Well stated. All right, all those in favor?
Thank you, Chris.
Yes. All right.
Oh, I was stuck.